Welcome to Summer Sunday Shorts.
Shorts are cool. Seriously, they're cool. Get it?
We're excited and honored that you're joining us again today. We've only got a couple of weeks left, so the time to get caught up is running out quickly.
Yes, make sure you go back and watch the ones that you've missed. I recommend getting it done this week. The sooner the better, because you don't want to fall just 1 week short of watching and responding.
That's right. You don't want to miss out on being in the drawing for our grand prize in just a few weeks. Everyone who sends us the key phrase from every video will be entered into the drawing. So watch whatever videos you've missed and send us those messages.
You know, when I was a kid, I was pretty sneaky. I liked to sneak into places I wasn't necessarily supposed to be so that I could listen to what was going on. You could say I was a serial eavesdropper.
I think we're all probably like that. Sometimes I would listen to a scary movie that my older brother was watching. I thought that was brilliant. But the couple times I did it, I had some pretty weird nightmares. So maybe it wasn't all that brilliant. I also lived in a time when we had multiple phones connected to the same landline, so I could pick up one phone really quietly and listen to whoever was talking on the other phone. Now, most of the time, they would hear the click when I picked up the phone, and I'd hear them say, "Who is that? Get off the phone!"
Yeah, so maybe we all tried something like this, but we didn't always get away with it. We can all picture ourselves as children sneaking around, trying to see or hear what's going on, then making the slightest noise and getting busted.
So why are we talking about all this? Because if you were ever trying to eavesdrop, the key was absolute silence. You had to move slowly, not hurry, and keep totally quiet, or else you would be heard. Silence was key.
Silence is always going to be key to listening well and being able to hear others. It's difficult to hear what others are saying if you never stop talking. It's also difficult to hear what others are saying if you don't purposefully choose to hear them over everything else going on around you. In a noisy room, if you don't look toward the person speaking, focus on them, and listen intently, you're probably going to miss the message.
The same is true when it comes to hearing from God. If we don't incline ourselves to hear, we won't hear Him. We will often miss what He's saying to us. Today, we'd like to look at a young man in Scripture who heard from God, and we want to see the position he had to put himself in to be able to hear. The boy's name is Samuel.
Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli. And the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he could not see, was lying down in his own place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel, and he said, "Here I am," and ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call, lie down again." So he went and lay down.
Eli was the high priest at that time, and Samuel was being raised by him in the temple. When he went to bed one night, he heard from God. It was quiet when he heard from him.
So let's think about it. Where is Samuel? He's in the temple while the lamp of God was still lit, meaning that God's presence was still there. He lays down near the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol and promise of God's presence to the people of Israel.
Samuel is literally resting in the presence of God. And as he is resting in God's presence, he hears a voice call him. He thinks it was Eli, so he goes to him, but Eli says it wasn't him.
The same thing happens 2 more times in verses 6 through 9. Eli finally figures out what's going on, so he tells Samuel to go lay down again. But this time, if he hears the voice, he should respond by saying, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And sure enough, God spoke to Samuel again.
And the Lord came and stood, calling at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant hears." Then the Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I am about to do a thing in Israel at which the 2 ears of everyone who hears it will tingle."
Samuel goes back to resting in God's presence, listening for God. And what does God do? He speaks to him. He speaks in the silence, and Samuel is able to hear from God.
And in the following verses, God lays out his plan for Israel and for Samuel's life. He instructs Samuel on what he wants from him. And Samuel was only able to hear God because he put himself into a position to hear. He rested in God's presence, and he sat silently before the Lord.
You know, we live in a busy world where we don't sit silently very well. We always pick up our phones, check our notifications, and run here and there, doing stuff, keeping busy. We don't sit quietly.
But it is in those times of rest in God's presence, in the silence, when we are most likely to hear and see what God is trying to speak to us. Just as God came to Elijah in a still, small voice, he often comes to us in quiet whispers.
So we have to be ready. We have to be in his presence. We have to be inclined to listen, and we have to choose to get rid of the noise all around us that keeps our minds occupied and away from him.
And I encourage you to take some time this week to sit quietly before God. Leave your phone in another room. No TV, no music, just silence. Pray to God and ask him what he wants to show you. And then sit in the quiet and wait for him to answer.
And that's the message we want you to share with us this week. The phrase is a simple one. I will sit in silence and wait for God. Got it?
That's it. Be sure to text one of us that phrase and then go and actually do it.
Join us next week, same time, same place. Well, for you, not for us. We'll be somewhere else. But join us next week for another episode of Summer Sunday Shorts. Thanks.